So many of you are confused about marriage today. You have considered marriage irrelevant. You are questioning each and everyone and yourselves whether marriage is still a good idea. Concepts such as honor, trust, faithfulness, and commitments have been old-fashioned and out of the new modern society, you say. Funny enough, many of you have changed partners like the way you change the shoes and the belts and the clothes on your body. I'm not surprised by this, and neither should you be, because when you watch all the movies, when you watch series, when you read those magazines, when you watch the television soaps, when you go on these websites, you find everything they portray and do is husbands or women cheating. It has actually become a plague. Unmarried men hopping into beds with married women. I have seen so many people, and you are inclusive, shopping for relationships like they are shopping for clothes and items in the market. I have heard further some saying, one size fits all. Therefore, you try on. If it doesn't, you jump to another. If it doesn't, you jump to another. It has just become a vicious circle. From the young to the old and to the old. Just like how you buy a new shoe and when it gets old, you throw it out and buy another one. It's so funny that relationships today have limited date, expiry date, and when they are done, they just throw them off the shelf. As the old saying, beauty lies in the hands of the beholder. It has changed to now morality and unfaithfulness in the hands of the beholder. It's so interesting that everything has become Chinese. Nothing lasts for a very long time anymore. This brings me to the most asked and frequented asked question. Does marriage still make sense in our global changing world today? Is marriage still a very good idea? What is your take on that? To me, yes, it is. I strongly agree and uphold. Why? Marriage is God's idea. For He created, designed, and established it. God instituted and ordained marriage at the very beginning of Genesis, of the human history and society. When God took Adam's rib to create Eve, He said, "It is not good for man to live alone. I will make him a suitable helper." Genesis chapter 2 verse 20. From the outset, God established marriage as a perimeter relationship. The union between two people, man and woman, into one flesh. You know how Adam, after setting eyes on Eve, he started prophesying. He said, "This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman." Woman means a man with a womb. And for she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man leaving his mother and father to unite with his wife to become one flesh is God's motivation. Stand warned, marriage is not gluing you to somebody else. No, it is the fusion amongst two, man and woman. I emphasize man and woman fused together. Other marriages, I beg to differ. Therefore, you fuse two different elements or different things into one. Therefore, if a man thinks will be fused with another man, that is wrong. You are just glued because you are of the same element and entity. However, when a man joins another woman, they are fused together. Why? Because they are of different entity and elements. Matter of fact, when two elements are fused together, they become inseparable. Only destroyed by a force of sufficient magnitude, which still will never disjoin them. For that reason, a man and a woman who have become one flesh under God's design for marriage cannot be separated without suffering great danger. For example, if you want to remove any part of the body, you have to cut it. If you cut off the hand, that means you are damaging it, damaging the whole body. For when you become one flesh, that is permanency, lifelong relationship. Remember the discussion Jesus had with the Pharisees over the question of divorce. The Pharisees asked Jesus whether it was lawful for a man to divorce his wife. They based their argument on Moses, who had permitted it in the law. You know the Pharisees, they had read all the laws, analyzed, and always wanted to challenge Jesus. Jesus' answer, you must study. It was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote those laws. Therefore, Moses based his laws according to people's hearts and according to people's conduct. At that time, remember? So, Jesus had to reflect back to the motivation of God. He said, at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For that reason, man or woman will leave their parents and unite their flesh to become one. That means they're no longer two, but are one in unity, soul and physical appearance. With this in mind, Mark chapter 10 verse 9 to 9 says, "Therefore what God has joined together, let no man put asunder or separate. For it is God who sets the standard, therefore he has to determine the standard by which you are to live. And Father has the authority to do away with it as he wishes, for he has set the standard." Further, you will know that marriage is God's established standard and fundamental element for human society. Just as a family is the best and fundamental function of any society, and marriage is the foundation of the family. For a nation to be a nation, it starts from a family. And all the other institutions follow. For that reason, when you attack the family, you are indirectly attacking the society, as marriage is to the society. As you listen in, be considerate that your model for a family should just reflect the relationship between Christ and the church, and therefore the relationship existing between the husband and the wife. And what is that, you may ask? Respect, mutual submission, and sacrificial love. Read the Bible. Right away from Genesis to Revelations, the Bible often uses the word house to refer to the smallest and most basic unit of a society, the family. Listen to this. The house is the foundation of the society, and marriage is the foundation of the house. For that reason, a healthy house is the key to both a healthy church and a healthy society. For that reason, do not think that the sole purpose of marriage is for propagation of the human race. I want to tell you listening in that the Bible indicates otherwise. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, God instructed man to be fruitful and multiply. Procreation is not the primary purpose of marriage, but rather creation and subduing. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." This makes marriage initially a companion covenant for husband and wife, man and woman, to join and become one flesh, and together rule over the earth, which we refer to as dominion. That therefore makes procreation a function of marriage, but not its main focus. That is why it is not surprising that the number of out of wedlock births exceed the number of babies born to married men or married women. Research has further shown that the population or the global growth of population may even outgrow the capacity of the world to sustain it. Although we don't forget that in some societies today, the procreation is you cannot get married when you have children. Literally meaning that people always throw thumb traps on people who get married when they have children, especially when those children are not belonging to the other spouse. Some of you have gone further to think that marriage exists as a sole purpose to legalize sexual relationships or to legitimize sexual relationships. But I beg to differ that marriage should never be equated with sex, because sex is not the primary purpose for marriage. Sexual union is not and will never be the same thing as marital union. However, marriage involves commitment. And to your information, sex has very little to do with commitment. Sex is just a feeling to biological and physical stimuli. Marriage is broader and deeper than sex itself. If we are to put it on a B balance, or if we are to put it in a percentage, sex is just 1% out of 100 that makes marriage. So my question is, how are you going to handle the 99%, which is remaining? Up to you. You may ask, how about adultery? Because you have seen so many societies, in our society today, people claiming or people saying or people basing on their divorces for adultery. Yes, adultery is a sin according to the Bible, and the only legitimate ground for divorce for believers. although it is not automatic and mandatory. So you need to know that adultery does not break marriage. However, breaking the marriage is a choice you make. So you need to stand on that marriage and sex are related, but never are they the same. Let me tell you, God's words are truly amazing because they provide all the answers you are asking yourself. One, the basic word for marry or marriage in Greek is gamio, Gameo, which derives itself from the same English word known as gene, Gem, literally meaning to fuse together. Remember, fusion of different elements. So, what are elements? When you dig deep into the earth spheres, you find that there are so many different elements: diamond, rubies, emeralds, phosphate, among others, just lying under the ground. However, to make them precious, something has to happen. And what is that? You have to hit them to an extent that you get something that you desire out of the pressure and out of the hard work for an extended period of time. Most of you know how charcoal is made or have seen somebody making charcoal. Charcoal, you burn down the tree, you cut down the tree, then you bury it into pieces, you bury it, put soil on top of it, then put fire inside there for a specific period of time. And the fire, it will heat it, burn the wood with intense heat and pressure, and charcoal will not be brought to you the next day. It will take time, weeks, months for it to become charcoal as you want it. 4. It is easy to break a tree, cut it, put it in the ground, put soil on it, start the fire within even 3 hours or within a day. However, the process to get charcoal is the longest process because it takes commitment, it takes time, it takes pressure, it takes heat. And the same is referred to marriage. It takes only a few minutes to get married, but building marriage requires a lifetime commitment. So, just as charcoal, marriage develops over time with hard work, with commitment, with sacrifice. 2, godly marriage becomes stronger under pressure. Remember, the more heat you apply to the wood, quality of the charcoal will be produced. For that reason, a husband and a wife have to face the pressure together, because the harder things get, the stronger the union grows. You are fused together. However, under pressure, you become stronger and harder. It is imperative to note, therefore, that marriage is a beautiful accommodation of another for a lifetime. For it takes time, it takes patience, above all, hard work. Did you know that the 2 most important decisions man makes in life is 1, salvation, 2, getting married or marrying? For that reason, it's never easy to move from a single life to a married life. Why? People do not change overnight. When you marry somebody, you just do not marry one person. You marry the whole family and clan. A complete history of experiences, culture, memories, habits, morals, all combined in one person. Imagine now you're sharing this one person in one house, in one bed, and you think you'll just get to know them over time? Not really. Just equate marriage to education. You start from primary, but by the time you get to university, your understanding and your knowledge and your experience and your character have all changed. And the same sphere happens with marriage. When you start, you are timid, you are scared, you are dull. But the more you move closer and closer and closer, the more, the better and the greater you become. It is a different class, but all you need to do is read the books, because the questions will be different and the experience still will be different. So you can learn from those that are already there but you have to acquire your own and learn from your own experiences. Those are just like guidelines, those are just like blueprints, but the real work is when you start, when you step in, when you start the action. For that reason, if you're married or you're preparing to get married or to marry, know that you are entering into God's ordained institution. between you and your spouse, and you should be ready for the heat, ready for the pressure. For you are diffusing with somebody different. Remember, different in form, different in culture, different in value, different in custom, and different in thinking, where you are ready to give and accommodate each other faithfully, committedly, and above all, putting God as the vessel upon which you stand.